His throne occupied for decades, but the self-proclaimed monarch of mudbugs was nearly usurped, not by a rival boiler, but instead a silent threat looming over an entire kingdom.
Cancellation. Eventually we lose 80 gigs.
But let's go back to when this so-called king first found his crown chasing the dead.
I came to New Orleans in 1991. I broke down here, actually following the Grateful Dead. And I was kind of, staying in my van on Conti and Decatur, right there down by the river.
Yep, Chris Davis, more widely known as Shaggy, lived in a van down by the river. But soon, he found a small shotgun uptown and planted roots.
Me and a couple of my buddies would buy boiled crawfish at King Roger's Seafood down on St. Claude and where it splits at Rampart. And that started from just a couple of us drinking beers, eating crawfish, and then the next week, a little bit more, and eventually I asked the owner if he could teach me how to boil them.
Before he knew it, the word of Shaggy's boils stretched across the neighborhood.
Started boiling, and it was the same thing, a group of guys, case of beer, then 3 cases of beer, 4 sacks of crawfish, then kegs of beer, then the neighborhood, then eventually someone asked me to come to their house and boil, and that's pretty much how it started.
Just like that, a former jester for the Grateful Dead created his own royal line.
I purchased crawfishking.com from some man in Houston, and yeah, the rest is history.
Shaggy traveled the country, bringing uniquely New Orleans flavors to the masses.
Anywhere Southwest flew, we shipped. I have pots still to this day in New York City, California. We go to Chicagoland was a big, area for us. So we did that a lot, anywhere. We brought Louisiana to you was our thing,
His specialty, festivals filled with hungry people desperate for something different.
Bonnaroo, Lock and Music Festival, Okeechobee in South Florida, Bayou Boogaloo in Norfolk, Virginia, which is a big New Orleans festival that they have there, and crawfish are a big part of that. We used to do 10,000 pounds there in a weekend, which is a lot of crawfish.
A bounty that beguiled Bonnaroo, many basking in their first boil.
At Bonnaroo, the minds are blown, we have video of just like going down the crowd, and they're just like, oh my God. And they will wait for like 2 hours before the actual crawfish come out at the table,
It was a gig fit for a king.
I work 6 months out of the year, pretty much, and travel the world the other 6 months.
Until last March, Shaggy loaded up 15,000 pounds of crawfish and headed to Houston.
Yes, Houston has a crawfish festival. The day we did the festival, they had gotten their first 2 cases in Houston. And, sorry to say, but they weren't able to go through the 15,000 pounds like they normally would because people were a little, weary.
Within weeks, the business he spent decades building began collapsing.
We lose a couple gigs here and there. I talked to my partner, Kat, and I'm just like, we got to prepare for this, see what's going to happen. Hopefully this comes and goes. And then I started watching the bank account just go down. Eventually we lose 80 gigs, which is my income.
So the man who started from the bottom went back to his roots, parking his food truck between a gas station and an old beat-up building in Gentilly.
There I went, parked the food truck, brought my boiling rig, and just went to town. And then it started off a little slow, and then eventually we had, a 50-yard line every day for, 4 or 5 months of crawfish season.
He was back, but he knew a food truck wouldn't cut it. Little did he know, though, that old building next door would soon be his home.
And I go by the abandoned building's door, and I just happened to yank on it. And it opened. And I walked inside. It sounds weird, because it is, but I walked inside and it was raining. I was standing in a puddle of water, and I just kind of looked around, and I was just like, wow. And I came out, and I looked at the line. I came back on the food truck, and I told my partner, Kat, I said, we're going to buy that building.
Within months, he converted this busted old building into a blast of color. NOLA Crawfish King Seafood and Barbecue, beckoning hungry passerbys in with a siren's call. Hot crawfish.
We're going to be one of those a destination, we hope, So, we're doing all kinds of great barbecue and and smoked meats and hog's head cheese and cracklings, and then all the seafood, the crawfish, the shrimp, the crabs, turkey necks, everything that we love in New Orleans.
Now employing a handful of people, greeting hungry neighbors, sharing the flavors he'd bring far and wide, right in his backyard.
Vibrant. I wanted it to be loud. I want people to know we're here, and plus, Gentilly is like, it's up and coming.
While his reach isn't as far these days, it's enough to keep promise boiled.
Last year feels like it's like this gap gone, so I'm just keep my fingers crossed that, spring and summer are solid and we can get back to living like we should, in New Orleans especially.
And with a legion of crimson crustaceans at his fingertips battling against that silent invader, this self-proclaimed king hopes to reign again. Rob Krieger, Fox 8, Local First.